are so right-wing that they fucking fought with Shai Davide in the past. Here's what Letitia James said. I'm extremely concerned about the arrest and detention of Mahmoud Khalil, an advocate and legal permanent resident of Palestinian descent. My office is monitoring the situation and we're in contact with his attorney. Here's what the Columbia Office of the President just released, by the way. This was their reaction to everything that's going on. And yes, the law that the plan to deport pro-Hamas students relies on a 1952 law that targeted Jews. We'll talk about that as well, the irony inherent in this process. I write to you at a challenging moment for our community. Columbia University exists to serve the United States and the world by teaching, creating, and advancing knowledge. We pursue that mission through freedom of expression, blah, 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 blah. We will work tirelessly to fulfill our mission. We're taking a methodical and thoughtful approach to addressing the multitude of challenges ahead of us. Suck my fucking dick. We will support our community. I understand the distress that many of you are feeling about the presence of ICE agents in the streets around campus. I feel it too, and I'm working with our team to manage the response. Resources for students are listed below. We will follow the law, as has always been the case, and rumors suggesting that any member of Columbia leadership requested the presence of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents on or near the campus are false. It remains the longstanding practice of the university and the practice of cities and institutions throughout the country that law enforcement must have a judicial warrant to enter a non-public university areas, including residential university buildings. How'd they get there? We are deeply committed to free speech as a fundamental value, except for when you protest against Israel, in which case we have no commitment whatsoever to free speech, and we will let you get deported. I mean, this is all bullshit, okay? And then they have counseling and well-being resources. Do they have, other than counseling and religious life advisors or whatever, do they actually give you like an ACLU link in here on what to do when ICE comes knocking down your door? I don't see it. Maybe they did. Maybe they did. I don't see it though. Beta are the same ones who've been putting pages in people's pockets of pro-Palestinian activists, including Norm Finkelstein. The group cannot be any grosser than they are. That's who Columbia is working alongside ICE with. Yeah. Unsurprising that Fetterman is involved. We are strongly supportive of, said Glick, we are strongly supportive of Trump's administration's plan to deport jihadis who seek out to destroy America. Our campuses and our streets are filled with violent people who hate Jews and cannot coexist with Western society. On Wednesday, Glick was on Capitol Hill meeting with lawmakers, including pro-Israel Senator John Fetterman, Democrat from PA. A Zionist organization is compiling names of foreign students on student visas in the U.S. who spewed anti-Israel bile at campus protests and is hoping President-elect Trump will give the haters a one-way ticket back home. This is from the New York Post, by the way. That's why they're writing the article in this, in the English language, even though it is very close to how you would hear it from the original German. For the record. If you cannot comprehend how, if you cannot see what is going on, if you cannot recognize the writing on the wall and how we are actively becoming more and more militant, more and more right-wing, more and more dangerous, okay, more open to fascism, I don't know what to tell you. This is a telltale sign. I'm going to give you two examples here, by the way, two things that happened. One good news and one reason as to why why Khalil would have been placed in custody in a detention center in Jenna, the LaSalle Detention Center facility in Louisiana. Pablo Manrique from Migrant Insider reports, ICE often goes immigration judge shopping by putting detainees in detention centers under jurisdictions of courts that very rarely decide in favor of migrants. Jenna, LaSalle in Louisiana, where Mahmoud Khalil is held, is one such detention center. That is the reason why they sent him to LaSalle. And even then, it seems that a judge has blocked the Columbia pro-Palestinian protester organizer Mahmoud Khalil's removal from U.S. This is from the senior legal affairs reporter at Politico, Josh Gerstein. Apparently, a judge has blocked the pro-Palestinian protest organizer Mahmoud Khalil's removal from the U.S. pending further action on habeas petition, because it would be a violation of due process. But the very fact that this is happening, and before people get at me over this and be like, oh, well, what about the Democrats or whatever? This action is not being taken as it stands currently to start deporting people en masse, okay? This action is being taken specifically to have a chilling effect, to tell people you will get punished criminally. And it is an extension of the previous administration's policy on the matter. 3,500 college students were arrested under the Biden administration for protesting against the state of Israel. 3,500 students were arrested in direct violation of the First Amendment. 3,500. If a liberal administration is going to allow that to happen, what the fuck did you think a Republican administration was going to do? And the reason for why those people got arrested was not because they were being truly disruptive or anything like that. The reason why, the 3 times the number of people that were arrested after January 6th, by the way, 3 times the number. January 6th, 1,000 people are arrested and convicted, okay, of crimes during the insurrection. 3,500 student protesters arrested under the Biden administration. And the reason for why they did that was specifically to say, you cannot protest against the state of Israel. If you do, we will find a way to fuck your lives up. They released them. They released the overwhelming majority of those, if not almost all of those protesters, but they arrested them regardless. And the reason for why they did that was specifically to create an environment where people understood that if you protest against Israel, there will be violent repercussions for you. Okay? Administrations in the past have never done so against Nazis, actual neo-Nazis, protesting on college campuses, protesting all around the country. The Trump administration prior actively defended neo-Nazis, as a matter of fact. So there were very fine people on both sides during Charlottesville, where a neo-Nazi traveled all the way from Ohio to Charlottesville and killed a counter-protester, an anti-fascist, by the name of Heather Heyer. Joe Biden claimed that Heather Heyer's murder in the hands of a white supremacist terrorist was the reason why he ran for office again. Make no mistake. And then Joe Biden oversaw some of the most brutal tactics implemented against peaceful demonstrators against the state of Israel post-October 7. In a matter of a year, in his last year in office, Joe Biden oversaw the arrest of 3,500 student protesters for the crime in air quotes, of protesting against the apartheid regime of Israel, actively conducting a genocide with our weapons, with our taxpayer-funded machines, and with our political cover in broad daylight, in front of all of your eyes. They even went so far as to ban TikTok, or at least attempt to ban TikTok, because TikTok was showing the truth to younger generations about the depravity and the horrifying nature of Israel's offensive genocidal campaign in the Gaza Strip. At no step did we ever take a deep breath and say, hey, we should probably reconsider our relationship. I didn't say we're on the verge of fascism. I'm saying fascism is here. And people will say, Hassan, fascism has always been here, but it is in your face, directly here. I'm worried about you, man. Do you think you're safe as a pro-Palestinian content creator? Man, this is inappropriate. stop asking me this question, okay? It's inappropriate. I don't care. I don't know what else to say other than the fact that Mahmoud Khalil, regardless of the smears, the vicious smears, was not arrested for any real reason other than the fact that this administration did not like what he had to say about a foreign nation. That's it. He didn't violate any laws. He didn't even break any fucking rules. It is actually the current administration that's violating pre-existing rules and laws. In an effort to deport him. Like, look at the Canary mission, dude. First of all, the Canary mission should be disbanded. Like, the fact that it exists is insane to me. But this is exactly what they've been doing. And they were doing this before the Trump administration, and they've greatly escalated these doxing campaigns after the Trump administration, knowing full well that Trump will play ball with them and maybe offer them a bone and deport a couple of these scary foreign students. What is this? Jewish, if not now, org founder Simone Zimmerman shares some platforms nods alongside anti-Semitic podcaster Hassan Piker, who complains people are hyper-focused on October 7th, labeling Hamas a terror org instead of the legitimate resistance and spreading misinformation like mass rapes. Yeah. Focus. You can suck my dick. Yeah, look at the scary things that they were doing. Like, you have to be a schizo to watch this compilation. If this is the best you got for why this person should be deported, you are operating on so many different levels of mania. If this is personally like enough for you to say, oh, this is so scary, you are a psychopath. It's wild to me that there is something that happens when you like defend Israel and you become a Zionist, or you were always one, I don't know, but like you just have no way of understanding other human beings. You're just one note where you can like actively dox people, you can actively go after them, you can actively demand that the administration deport you, okay? For the crime of someone exercising their First Amendment rights against Israel doing a genocide. Like, how terrifying. You know what's fucking terrifying? Gestapo agents knocking down your door and taking you away in the middle of the night, not telling your 8-month pregnant wife where you are, and then entertaining the notion of revoking your green card status. That is actually terrifying. Not, ooh, these guys are banging drums and protesting against an apartheid state, a fucking foreign nation. That's not terrifying. That is expected. That is the right thing to do. And it should happen way more frequently. It should be happening every fucking day. It is insane. Like, what the hell are we doing, man? What is happening? Like, the fact that people even entertain this is psychotic. Dog, I support Palestine, but every country has the right to say who and who cannot be in the country. This is called a democracy, and you may not like it, but it's a fact of life. Every country that does things like this, yes, you fucking moron. You know who else did things like this? Nazi Germany. The fuck are you saying? Oh, you don't understand. Every country has the right to say who and who can't be in the country. You know? Yeah, they did do that, okay? They did that to the fucking Jews in Nazi Germany. The fuck are you saying? Was that appropriate? Do you think that it was all right? I'm sure there were plenty of fucking German dumbasses like you, okay? Living in Bavaria going, oh, well, you know, every country has a right to see who has the right to be there. Nice false equivalent. Why is that a false equivalence? Do you have a fucking brain cell that you can rub against another? It's not a false equivalence, you fucking moron. It is a one-to-one analog. Address what I said instead of going, nice false equivalence. When in doubt, pull the Nazi card. Oh my God, you have nothing. You fucking brainlet. You goddamn baboon. Holy shit. Address the argument and explain to me why the exact logical framework that you're operating off of is not a one-to-one application to Nazi Germany. You have nothing. You just resorted to insults? No, I didn't. I resorted to insults when you said nice false equivalence. I gave you a counterexample because I wanted to dignify you with a response, and you had no response. You just said nice false equivalence. Answer my comparison. Address the counterargument that I presented to you. Okay? If you have, it's not a false equivalence, explain why it's a false equivalence then. Explain why it's a false equivalence. You can't just say something is a false equivalence. You have to make an argument. Why are debate pedophiles so bad at debating? Why are debate perverts so fucking bad at debating? Debate pervertry cannot just be, oh, that's an ad hominem and move on. You can't just go, that's a false equivalence and move on. You have to describe why it is a false equivalence. You can't just say it is a false equivalence. Please entertain all of us with your counter. Tell me why it is a false equivalence without going, it's a false equivalence. It's a false equivalence because it's a false equivalence. Okay, that's a tautology. Explain why it is a false equivalence. You can't because you're a moron. You're going back to your fucking sex pestiny chat to try to get some counter narratives here, some counter examples. Quick, guys, give me some examples, please. What is the argument? You literally are seething. Holy shit. America's a democracy. I'm seething. So you have no argument. You have no counter example as to why it is a false equivalence. All you have is just saying it's false equivalence. That's it? You have no counter examples? You have no reason to claim it's a false equivalence? Now you've just moved the goalpost to you're seething. Lol. People voted for these people to be removed, so they should be removed. It's that simple. That's not how this works, buddy. Okay? I told you that in Nazi Germany, people made the exact same argument. Well, you know, it is what it is. These people actively get to choose who stays in this country and who doesn't. It's also additionally funny to say this because it is deeply unpopular to remove the citizenship status of an American green card holder because they criticize the state of Israel, especially at a time when, you know, sympathies have greatly and dramatically shifted in the favor of Palestinians. I highly doubt that this will be seen as a popular sentiment, but that's not the point right now. You're wrong on that front as well, but you don't even know what you're arguing, Lamau, word salad as. Zero people think you're making a brilliant point here. You are actively running away like the fucking coward that you are from the immediate retort you had. I dignified you with a response, and I said, why do you think it's a false equivalence? You could not entertain that even for a brief moment, and now you're just trying to pull the ripcord desperately because your brain is stunted, okay? You are both emotionally and intellectually stunted. That's it. Give me a fucking counter example. Tell me why it's a false equivalence. You can't, because it's not a false equivalence. This is projection, by the way. You don't even know what you're arguing for, Lamau. Word salad. Nazi Germany murdered millions of people. How can you possibly compare the two? Oh, dude. Was that what we were talking about? Is that why it's a false equivalence? Nazi Germany murdered millions of people. How can you possibly compare the two? I said that if you are a legal positivist, if you think, well, it's the law is the law, this is what people want. I told you, I gave you a historical example of when something that was truly heinous and truly considered to be an atrocity by today's standards was the law. It's legit. Now you're fucking trying to cry bully and go, it's legit an insult to the 6 million lives lost. Nobody in their right minds thinks modern America is similar to Nazi Germany. No, plenty of people do. It's just not after the final solution. This is before the final solution. But that's not the argument. That is not an adequate response. You are not actually presenting why this is a false equivalence. It's because you can't. But that's besides the point. That's why you had to resort to, it's insulting. That's not an argument. Saying something is insulting is not an argument. Especially when you consider from your framework that was the law. In Germany, that was the law. You haven't brought a single argument, my guy. You just said Nazi. Okay, well, I think I'm done entertaining fucking this moron. I could literally restate the argument a million times over, and I think it would not penetrate the security barrier that you have up there. It's empty inside, but there's a fucking thick-ass skull. You will never be able to understand the normal human language. It's just not going to happen for you. I can confirm you gave arguments that just went right over his head. I know. Sometimes you just genuinely cannot argue with people who are too stupid to argue. This is one of those instances. It is what it is. And then that person will go back and be like, Hassan hates dissent. Hassan hates dissent. He banned me because he's too afraid of good arguments. No, we're banning you because not only are you fucking too stupid to communicate, okay, but you're also incredibly fucking narcissistic. A real case of Dunning-Kruger where you unironically bit off more than you can chew and were too stupid to understand even the fact that you bit off more than you could chew in this process. The railers will get the belt. Speaking of people you genuinely cannot reason with, what is this? Well, I don't even care about this. Speaking of people you genuinely cannot reason with, Sam Cedar did a Jubilee video, which we will be watching as well, because apparently Sam also did the same thing that I just experienced right here, but in real time against people who actively had no shame and associated their faces and names with some of the stupidest things you ever heard. Yes, also known as the Jube. Let's wrap this up and move on.
Khalil's arrest signifies an escalation in President Trump's vow to deport.
I have one critique for Hasanabi. You have a tendency when simplifying your arguments to less informed audiences to make conclusionary statements. What? Okay.
Foreign students
You didn't explain why this is a criticism.
and imprison agitators involved in protests against Israel's war in Gaza. Last week, Columbia University also learned that the Trump administration pulled $400 million in grants and contracts, citing the school's failure to squelch anti-Semitism here on campus. It is unclear where Khalil is being held. His attorney has said he may have been transferred as far as the state of Louisiana. Reporting live from Morningside Heights, Christina Fan, CBS News, New York.
Okay, Christina, thank you.
A graduate student at Columbia University arrested by ICE officials for his role in the pro-Palestinian protests taking place on that campus last year.
Now, this comes as the Trump administration is threatening to revoke green cards and visas of those who support Hamas. Let's get right to Good Day's Briella Tomasetti. She is at the Ivy League school this morning with the latest. Briella, good morning.
Tashani and Dan, good morning. This arrest is the first publicly known deportation effort under President Trump's new plan to remove alleged Hamas sympathizers from college campuses.
Alleged Hamas sympathizers. Please, man, what are you guys doing? Like, please have bare minimum basic human decency. Please, I beg of you. Okay? Please, please. Under no circumstances do you have to adopt the framing that this insane right-wing government is deploying here, okay? Holy fuck, dude. Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. Alleged Hamas sympathizers.
Campuses.
Fuck.
Trump has also canceled $400 million in federal grants to Columbia University, quote, due to the school's continued inaction in the face of persistent harassment of Jewish students. Federal immigration authorities arrested Columbia graduate student Mahmoud Khalil at his university-owned apartment over the weekend, doubling down on the Trump administration's promise to crack down on anti-Semitism. Khalil, a permanent U.S. resident with a green card, is a pro-Palestinian activist who played a major role in protests that swept Columbia University's campus last spring. A new executive order signed by President Trump calls for the deportation of resident aliens, including students with visas, who broke laws during anti-Israel protests following the October 7th, 2023 terrorist attacks. Khalil's attorney, Amy Greer, told the Associated Press he was being detained at an immigration detention facility in Elizabeth, New Jersey. She says when his wife tried to visit yesterday, she learned he wasn't there. Khalil's whereabouts are currently unclear. While speaking over the phone with one of the ICE agents during the arrest, Greer was told the agency was acting on State Department orders to revoke Khalil's student visa and green card. In a post yesterday to X, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the Trump administration will be revoking the visas and/or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported. The Department of Homeland Security added that Khalil forfeited his rights to remain in the U.S., alleging he, quote, led activities aligned to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization.
If he was promoting violence of any sort, then it would be somewhat reasonable.
Khalil Sr. on the right served as a...
Even then it wouldn't. He's a green card holder, okay? No. If he's promoting violence, if he is truly promoting violence, if he's like urging a riot in a real situation, okay? Let's say there's a Nazi and they're urging violence at a violent Nazi rally, which of course happens all the time, by the way, with no prosecution whatsoever because they say First Amendment, okay? But in that process, then you can't just apprehend them, lock them in jail, and then try to remove their citizenship status. You can't do that. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Even when there's due process, I still do not believe that you can just remove the citizenship status of someone, okay? You can work within the existing legal structure that is right there for American citizens, green card holders and natural-born U.S. citizens alike. I'm getting confused when you keep saying citizenship status. Are we talking about green cards or citizens? Green card holders are also citizens. Like they are migrants with legal documentation, okay? It is the closest you can get to, in terms of a status, it is the closest you can get to without being a natural born U.S. citizen. Like, what are we talking about? They're a legal permanent resident.
The student negotiator during last spring's protests as they bargained with administrators over an end to the tent encampment set up on campus. Since then, he's faced sanctions at the university for helping to organize a march where activists...
You are de facto a citizen when you have a green card, okay? De facto, not legally. It's not legally the same. It's the one step. It is the one step before you have permanent citizenship. Not true, Hassan. Wait, what? Yes, it is true. It is. You're not you are de facto seen as a, I'm not saying you are legally a citizen. I'm saying, listen to my words. You're basically a fucking citizen. What's on? This motherfucker does not know what de facto means. I do know. Well, it seems like you're deliberately being obtuse then, even if you do understand. Can you explain de facto? It is hard to follow all this as a foreigner. It means, yes, de facto means in practice and functionally. You are in practice and functionally a citizen. You are one step removed. You are one step removed from being a full-blown citizen. On your day-to-day experience, you are basically a citizen. It is also known as a permanent resident card. There are lots of misunderstandings here that can be easily cleared up. Yo. Here's usimmigration.org. What is the difference between a green card and U.S. citizenship? Permanent residents have the right to work and live in the U.S. indefinitely, as well as the right to petition for close family members for a green card. However, because green card's relatives are considered preference relatives, this process takes considerably longer than for a U.S. citizen. Permanent residents continue to be citizens of another country, which means they do not have a right to a U.S. passport. Lawful permanent residents do not have the right to vote in the U.S. elections and may lose their status if the U.S. government considers they've abandoned their status by spending more than 6 months outside the United States, for example. If a lawful permanent resident plans on leaving the U.S. for a period exceeding 1 year, they must first obtain a permit if they do not wish to abandon their status. After a certain amount of time, permanent residents can apply for U.S. citizenship, also known as the naturalization process. These are the major distinctions between someone who is a naturalized U.S. citizen versus a green card holder. Now, if you may have noticed something. You may have noticed something significant here, which is that these are simply laws, okay? They're just things written on a piece of paper. And whoever chooses to enforce them get to dictate whether or not they are valid, permissible, and will be followed through on. And if you noticed, laws can be violated. Laws can be violated by individual actors, but they can also be violated by those in positions of power, for example. And when those in positions of power violate those laws or actively seek out actively try to change those pre-existing laws, as the Trump administration is trying to do right now, new laws will be implemented, which is why we always say there's a difference between something being legal and something being moral. There's a difference between something being good and something being legal. And you might have noticed that the Trump administration very clearly is trying to change the laws, or at least starting the process of changing the laws by actively undermining it. Unlike green card holders, U.S. citizens cannot be deported from the United States unless, that is, they committed fraud to obtain their green card or citizenship. Yes. Make sure chat knows that his detainment was indeed sudden and kept secret. Last night, his family and lawyers didn't know where he was taken and his wife was threatened. Yes. Mahmoud Khalil, a legal resident of U.S. and Columbia University student, has been illegally detained by the U.S. government and his whereabouts are unknown to even his wife and lawyers. They basically kidnapped him.
activists glorified Hamas and for playing a substantial role in the circulation of social media posts criticizing Zionism. Columbia University shared a statement with Fox 5 saying, Columbia is committed to complying with all legal obligations and supporting our student body and campus community. We are also committed.
Dude, the local media coverage of this is insane, by the way. They're just basically saying it's awesome and it's good. And these guys love Hamas, and they were doing material support for Hamas. And it's awesome that the Trump administration is deporting one of them.
To the legal rights of our students and urge all members of the community to be respectful of those rights. His attorney told us, we will vigorously be pursuing Mahmoud's rights in court and will continue our efforts to right this terrible and inexcusable and calculated wrong committed against him. And according to the Columbia Daily Spectator, starting today, gate access for university ID holders, registered guests, and alumni will be limited to just 3 entry points, including the one here behind me, in anticipation of any future protests. But for now, we're live here in Morningside Heights. Dan and Tashani, we'll send it back to you.
Briella, thank you.
Are the ADL's anti-Semitism status credible? The listening post. They're not. The answer is no. Here is a good analog. The Rosenstrasse protest is considered to be the significant event in German history, as it is the only mass public demonstration by Germans in the Third Reich against the deportation of Jews. The protest on Rosenstrasse, Rose Street, took place in Berlin during February and March 1943. This demonstration was initiated and sustained by non-Jewish wives and relatives of Jewish men and Mischlinge, those of mixed Jewish and Aryan heritage. Their husbands had been targeted for deportation based on the racial policy of Nazi Germany and detained in the Jewish community house on Rosenstrasse. The protest, which occurred over the course of 7 days, continued until the men being held were released by the Gestapo. The protest by the women of the Rosenstrasse led to the release of approximately 1,800 Berlin Jews. From the onset of his power, Hitler dedicated himself to fully accomplishing his idea of the ideal government. In his eyes, a model government drew conscious consent from its strength in 3 pillars of authority. In Mein Kampf, he asserts that a government whose mastered popularity, force, and social tradition may be regarded as unshakable. Social acceptance was integral to the Nazi Party's continued power. Before beginning to deport Jews as a part of the final solution, the regime made a trial deportation of German Jews and had their German neighbors studied attentively, who, in a win for the regime, had hardly noticed their missing neighbors. Many Germans also willingly condemned Jews to the Gestapo, the Nazi secret police, often for very little personal gain. It was partially an environment of terror, pushing Germans to self-police. However, a large number of Germans went well beyond that. Survival demanded to assist the regime. Laws against German-Jewish relations implemented by the regime were precedented by reports made by citizens of what they considered to be antisocial or deviant behavior. In 1935, following a slew of reports to the Gestapo, in July, the Nuremberg race laws excluded German Jews from Reich citizenship and prohibited them from marrying or having sexual relations with persons of German or German-related blood at any point in the future. The Nuremberg laws, aimed at preventing further racial mixing, did not dissolve existing marriages in deference to the social and religious sanctity and privacy of marriage. By December 1942, 27,744 intermarried Jews were registered in Germany. Initially, German women married more Jewish men than their male counterparts. After the consolidation of power under Hitler, more German men had divorced their partners than women, so the majority of intermarried relationships were between a German wife and her Jewish husband. These women had long faced social and societal pressure from their communities to divorce their husbands long before the Holocaust. Therefore, when the campaign against their husbands began, German women married to Jewish men were already resistant to the outward pressure. As they encountered many Jews in their day-to-day lives, German women were not susceptible to propaganda's evil, abstract depictions, causing the regime to turn to force. In Berlin, the majority of Jews spared from deportation were those in intermarried relationships or those working in armaments factories. Since 1933, these intermarriages were seen by the Nazis as their certain victims, and the regime tried with all of its might to get rid of them. However, these intermarried Jews were woven tightly into their communities, and the regime, cautious of antagonizing non-Jewish Germans and injuring public morale, had delayed. Yes, Israel literally has laws in its books currently to stop that sort of thing from happening as well. So, anyway. Casey Neistat? What the hell? Does Casey Neistat not know that Sneeko is a... Casey Neistat just retweeted Sneeko updates. Sneeko plays a 27-second video by Casey Neistat that motivates him to always work hard. Casey, Sneeko is a fucking Holocaust denier. What the hell? That's wild. All right. Let's see what Philip had to say about
And
this.
is trying to deport a well-known Palestinian activist despite him having a green card, the first of what Trump has promised will be many, and it sparked a massive scandal. What you need to know about Canada's incoming Prime Minister Mark Carney, including his first words for Donald Trump. Drewski and OBJ have issued quick denials after just being named in a Diddy lawsuit. We're talking about all that and much more on today's brand new Philip DeFranco Show. You daily dive into the news, how it's being covered, and how people are reacting to it. But first, a quick announcement. I just made an awesome mini March drop live for you over at beautifulbastard.com, where right now you can snag yourself a green card, a move that many experts say is a violation of free speech rights under the First Amendment. Right? And this is also incredibly significant because it appears to mark the first publicly known arrest under Trump's broader promise to revoke student visas and deport non-citizen students who joined pro-Palestine campus protests last year, with him claiming that the students no longer had the right to stay in the country because they supported Hamas. And while this is something that Trump has been promising for a while, this latest news notably comes after he brought this whole thing to the next level last week with him writing on Truth Social. All federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protests. Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to the country from which they came, and adding American students will be permanently expelled or, depending on the crime, arrested. Though this, as many have noted...
Don't change the Drewski story. Dude, I think the claims being made against Drewski in a court document where they literally call him Drewski and not his fucking government name were made about him potentially going to a Diddy party in 2018 when Drewski was not a famous person. People need to be a little bit more careful with whatever the fuck they see on Twitter, okay? Drewski's response. This allegation is a fabricated lie. I wasn't a public figure in 2018. I was broke, living with my mom without any connections to the entertainment industry at the time of this allegation. So the inclusion of my name is truly outlandish. My heart breaks for actual victims of abuse, but I'm fully confident that the evidence will expose this falsehood and the individuals who are maliciously trying to game the legal system to peddle false narratives. Yeah, and there's also like basically memes. Like I saw some of the fucking insane shit. Is a government name and a stage name. But Clout, they called them both. It literally says a government name and Drewski. It's a government name and a stage name. Yeah. Also, perhaps more importantly, is the fact that defendant Drewski then caught himself sliding over plaintiff's oiled body and off the bed. While defendant Drewski's rape... 2018, they invited him, though? What? Like, I don't know if there's... Hassan, don't do this, man. I'll wait for the trial. His behavior has always been odd to me. Yeah, I agree with that. His behavior being odd... Wait, they do name him and it happened in 2021? Okay, if it happened recently, then that's different. If it happened in 2018, it's fucking ridiculous. Obviously, nobody's fucking inviting Drewski in 2018. Can we litigate this later? We were talking about the erosion of the First Amendment rights. Yes. Okay, we'll get back to it in a second. It just smelled weird to me. That's all I'm saying. Hassan believed what he read on Twitter. Wait, what? No, I read some of the pieces that they put forth in the accusations, and there is I said this about the Jay-Z stuff too, chat. Jay-Z, not a fan. Okay, Not a big fan of Jay-Z, and he has literally been very famous and very powerful and very wealthy for quite some time. And not only that, but he certainly went to Diddy parties, okay? Having said that, the allegations that were launched against him, in spite of all of that, came across as a little, it just, it didn't smell right. That's all I'm saying. And I felt the same way about I felt the same way about these allegations, or some of that, at least what I've seen. And I'll cover it extensively afterwards. This is not a defense of Drewski. I don't give a fuck about defending Drewski, okay? Calm down. Yeah, I watched Should Have Been Loved. That doesn't mean that I'm going to fucking entertain someone who allegedly did heinous crimes at a Diddy party, okay? Let's continue.
That the White House hasn't really clarified what they consider to be an illegal protest, given the fact that these activities are usually protected under the First Amendment.
Once again, we're quite literally talking about the American government undermining First Amendment rights, possibly taking away the green card status of an American lawful resident, legal resident. And, you're over here being like, someone is in the chat being like, talk about A-Up Lovely. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? We're doing news right now, okay? We'll get to other shit later.
But regardless, the administration has made it clear that Colombia is its first major target, with it announcing on Friday that it had canceled $400 million in grants and contracts to the school, and now going after one of the most prominent protest leaders there. And specifically, the activist in question.
Yeah, a judge temporarily blocked the deportation. I know. I already covered it. A federal judge has temporarily blocked Trump administration efforts to deport a Palestinian activist who helped lead the protests at Columbia University.
Question is Mahmoud Khalil, a former Columbia graduate student with Palestinian heritage who graduated with a master's in December. And while he was still at the university last year, he became a leader of the protest movement, with Khalil describing his role to reporters as a negotiator and spokesman for the school's pro-Palestine.
I don't agree with him. I don't agree with supporting Hamas, but if he's supporting Palestine, that's the right me and my boys fought for. Bro, even like Patriot HVAC services, listen to me, okay? Like, first of all, anyone who supports Palestinians are going to be branded as supporting Hamas. And secondly, you still can't fucking do that, okay? It's ridiculous. What do you mean? You just can't be like, all right, sorry, RIP. Oh, you're supporting the IRA. You're going to get deported. Ridiculous.
Palestinian group. And according to a statement from his lawyer, Amy Greer, over the weekend, Khalil was stopped by ICE agents who told him his student visa had been revoked, and saying that when he told them that he was a lawful permanent resident with a green card because his wife is a U.S. citizen, they detained him anyway. And this is, Greer also said that she doesn't know where Khalil's even being held. But they're saying that she was told Sunday morning that he was being detained in Elizabeth, New Jersey, a fact that was also listed on an ICE detainee locator website, but then adding, when his wife, a U.S. citizen who is 8 months pregnant and was threatened with arrest as well by the ICE agents last night, tried to visit him there today, she was told he is not detained there. And so now you have Greer saying she received reports that he may have been transferred as far away as Louisiana. And several outlets have also since reported that records suggest that Khalil is indeed being held in custody in Louisiana. With the attorney then going on to say that she has filed a habeas corpus petition on Khalil's behalf, challenging his arrest and detention, and adding, "We will vigorously be pursuing Mahmoud's rights."
Yeah, Glenn Greenwald is correct on this, by the way. Also, just a quick First Amendment review. People are allowed to praise whoever they want. I can stand up every day and say I love Al-Qaeda. I can argue Hamas has the right to use violence to resist Israel. I can urge the U.S. to nuke Iran or Peru. This is called free speech. This guy. Non-citizens don't get the benefits of the Bill of Rights. The Constitution is for U.S. citizens. That's ridiculous.
In court, and will continue our efforts to right this terrible and inexcusable and calculated wrong committed against him. And with that, saying that the arrest follows the U.S. government's open repression of student activism and political speech, specifically targeting students at Columbia University for criticism of Israel's assault on Gaza, and adding the U.S. government has made clear that they will use immigration enforcement as a tool to suppress that speech. But as far as exactly why Khalil's being detained, that remains unclear right now. Right now, with that, I'll say in a statement last night, a spokeswoman for the Department of Homeland Security said that he was arrested in, quote, support of President Trump's executive executive orders prohibiting anti-Semitism, adding Khalil-led activities aligned to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization, and saying ICE and the Department of State are committed to enforcing President Trump's executive orders and to protecting U.S. national security. With also Secretary of State Marco Rubio sharing a link on X to an AP article about Khalil in writing, "We will be revoking the visas and/or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported." And then today, we saw Trump himself chiming in on Truth Social, writing that Khalil had been apprehended and that his arrest was just the first of many to come, and adding that his administration knows of more students who have engaged in what he called pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, and claiming, without evidence there, that many are not students, they are paid agitators. With Trump then going on to say, "We will find, apprehend, and deport these terrorist sympathizers from our country, never to return again." But very notably here, none of those official statements have said what specific crimes Khalil had actually been charged with. And that ends up being super significant because experts say that it is true that DHS can revoke green cards and deport their holders for a wide range of criminal activity, including support for a terror group. While the agency's statement seems to indicate that they are trying to revoke his green card on those grounds, it's been widely reported, including in the same AP article Rubio shared, that
This is completely ridiculous, by the way, just for the record. Okay? If you are a green card holder or even legally on U.S. soil, you still have a right to a trial, number one, and you also still can express free speech. Like, what do you mean? It is ridiculous. It is completely ridiculous. The idea that you could just like not do any of those things is, or that the American government has a right to do this is fucking insane, okay? Yeah, here, Glenn Greenwald is right on this as well. It's really alarming how many Americans falsely think the U.S. Constitution only applies to U.S. citizens. It is a restriction on U.S. government actions and applies to all people legally on U.S. soil. Otherwise, even people illegally on U.S. soil, actually, as a matter of fact. But definitely to all people legally on U.S. soil. Otherwise, the U.S. government could mass arrest all tourists who it concludes has bad views. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, we're just going to torture you guys because we decided that we don't like what you have to say. Yeah, Noah literally just texted me as you. Oh my God, that's so funny. Noah just texted me this as chat also tweeted it at me, or chat sent me this tweet. Your moment of Zen. Please close the Overton. It's Crackhead Barbie with Norm Finkelstein at a release Mahmoud Khalil protest in New York.
Khalil hasn't actually been charged with a crime. Right? And according to the AP, his arrest appears to stem from an investigation by a Columbia University office that has brought disciplinary charges against many, with Khalil potentially facing sanctions for helping to organize a, quote, unauthorized marching event where participants glorified Hamas's October 7th attack, as well as playing what they called a substantial role in circulating social media posts criticizing Zionism in addition to other acts of alleged discrimination. But as of right now, from what we've seen, those are just allegations under investigation. And even if he's found to be culpable, we're talking about disciplinary action from the university, not necessarily anything with actual immediate legal implications. Which is why with all this, you have so many experts questioning the legality of this move and some just calling it blatantly unconstitutional. Right? And so with all this, we've seen many arguing that he's just being detained for protesting and expressing views protected by free speech, and that criticism notably has even come from within the halls of Columbia. We're seeing the director of the Immigrants' Rights Clinic at Columbia Law School saying that revoking Khalil's green card in retaliation for his public speech, that is prohibited by the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. With one legal expert even going a step further, telling CBS, if he's a green card holder, slam dunk, there's no way.
Free speech has never been a thing, so why are we focusing on this? Is free speech for the ruling class? That's what it's always been. Chad, should watch a cuck philosophy video on it. Yeah, that's really stupid, okay? I understand that, and I understand how historically this is not applied, but it doesn't matter because the principle is still there. The theory is still there. You should use it to try and defend people from being falsely fucking detained and deported, okay? Like, this is the thing that I don't understand. The institutions that remain for the time being should still be used to stop, to mitigate further harm. Like, what are we talking about? I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, in theory, free speech actually has never been applied towards those who have any sort of like radical changes that are at the behest of the public, especially when they're directly against the interests of capital or whatever. Yeah, I know. I know that. You think I don't know that? Of course I fucking know that. It doesn't matter. You think I give a fuck about, for example, the structural hurdles that the Democratic Party had to withstand with regular frequency when they were in charge? No. I told them, I urged them to boulder over it. But now that they're not in charge, I will actively urge them to use those same structural hurdles to limit the scope and power of the Republican fascist administration. While they're there, you should use them. You know, I abhor gun violence. I'm not a fan of gun violence, but if someone's fucking, coming into my house trying to kill me and I got a gun, I'm probably going to use it. Okay?
To arrest him. He had not been charged with a crime, or if he's, if there's something more than that, really there's no way. Number one, because you're dealing with a legal resident alien, which means you're dealing with the green card holder who has a lot of rights in our country. Right, and this is, you've had others questioning what legal authority the Trump administration would even have to revoke green cards, noting that usually such an action would require a hearing before an immigration judge. But then, of course, beyond what the experts have been saying, we've also seen a massive reaction to the arrest online, with one example being a petition for his release getting more than 1 million signatures online as of recording. Many also slamming the move in posts, including big names like Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who tweeted, "If the federal government can disappear a legal U.S. permanent resident without reason or warrant, then they can disappear U.S. citizens too. Anyone, left, right, or center, who has highlighted the importance of constitutional rights and free speech should be sounding the alarm now." And to her point there, we've seen people across the political spectrum raising concerns. I mean, for example, you even had right-wing Ann Coulter tweeting, "There's almost no one I don't want to deport, but unless they've committed a crime, isn't this a violation of the First Amendment?" But also, very notably on the other side, we've seen plenty of people and groups praising this move, including the Columbia Jewish Alumni Association, which applauded Khalil's detention and
It's so disgusting, dude. It's so shameless. Like, supporting a fascist administration doing Gestapo-style shit as a Jewish organization is insane, dude. You are so cooked, brother. You are so brain broken. Holy fuck. Like, oh my God.
a series of posts on X, with him claiming that he was a ringleader of the chaos at Columbia. You also had the Anti-Defamation League cheering on the arrest, writing, "We appreciate the Trump administration's broad, bold set of efforts to counter campus anti-Semitism, and this action further illustrates that resolve by holding alleged perpetrators responsible for their actions." Though notably, even they seem to acknowledge the questionable legal ground here, adding that any deportation, action, or revocation of a green card or visa must be undertaken in alignment with required due process protections. Right, notably, we ended up seeing the ADL getting some flack for that post from many, including major commentators like Hassan Piker, who shared that post and wrote, "The ADL thinks it's okay to revoke the green card of student activists." This is supposed to be a civil rights organization, by the way. But for now, that is where we are. Of course, this is a developing situation. Things are subject to change. So while we keep an eye on this, in the meantime,
Lol, you're advocating for terrorism just like the person who was deported. Might want to change your rhetoric. Suck my fucking dick, bitch. Okay? Suck it dry from the back. You understand me? Suck my fucking dick. You dumb bitch. Imagine coming in here to be like, yeah, that's right. You better fucking recognize, dude. Trump is going to come after you too. You baby-brained coward. You can sit around and hope, okay? And maybe it will happen, but that will never change your fucking moral depravity, okay? I am just one fucking person. I'm just one guy. That will never change the fact that you are a repugnant little coward egging on a fucking fascist administration. It is because in your heart you know that you are supporting baby killers, okay? You are supporting it, and deep down inside there's a little person in you that you're trying to fucking silence desperately that is telling you maybe it's not right, maybe it's not appropriate, okay? What's real terrorism in this process, you think? Terrorizing green card holders for the crime of hurting Israel's feelings as it's conducting a genocide? What's real terrorism? Actively murdering babies with American weapons? Or resisting against that? Dipshits. Yeah, keep hoping that the Trump administration will pack up all of the naysayers. One day, there will not be a single person to defend you when you are in the crosshairs. Okay? You should be lucky that people like myself and many others in progressive spaces will unconditionally fight for your rights, regardless. We'll do the work necessary, even when you don't recognize what the fuck is going on, dumbass. And maybe we'll fail. There have been many failures, such as this one, throughout history. But you certainly will not have an easy go at it, I promise. Pig. RDADL's anti-Semitism stats credible.